All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Chaos, Clarity, and Confidence, Finding You Again. This is the podcast where we explore the real stories of women who are navigating life's messy moments and finding their way back to their strength, their clarity, and their power. I'm your host, Victoria, and today I am very honored to not have one, but two guests who are going to be joining me today. Madeline and Katrina, the voices behind the Rewired Woman Podcast. These two women have walked through some of the darkest valleys: grief, depression, suicidal ideation, addiction, and mental health struggles, and have not only survived, but now they are using their voices to help light the way for others who are in the struggle. So, ladies, welcome so much and thank you so much for being on the show. I really want to welcome you. I'm so grateful you're here. And I'd love to hear more. Tell us more about you. What brings you here today?
Hi, so I'm Kat, and what brings me here is my best friend Mads, and our podcast starting, and she wanted to kind of just get the word out. But
Mm,
I think we both come from grief in very different ways. So I think we start with grief, but we share a lot of similar mental health diagnoses, which we found out later, which is why we're so compatible, is because we can relate
mm.
and how we think and see the world. Um, and yeah, what about you, Mads?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having us. We're really excited to share our stories. And I love the idea of your podcast, like actually taking people's real stories and journeys, something that can feel really scary to tell
Mhm.
people the vulnerable truths. And this is something we even talk about a lot, right? People are like, be authentically you, share your things. It's so like inspiring, but then like when you actually tell people things that people find really uncomfortable or really dark,
Yeah.
you can like feel that like shrink away. So I think it's really cool that you're like creating this safe space for people to be like this is a part of the human experience to
Mhm.
face things, and you're like capable of moving through them, and one of the ways to move through them is to do that in community and through storytelling.
Yes, I love that. Yes. Yeah. Okay, ladies. So tell us about, how did you get to the place where, okay, now you're podcasting, you're sharing your stories, but there's so much that led up to that. Could you share with us, like you said, some of those moments that brought you to that place?
Yeah, it's a long story.
Buckle up.
Yeah,
You think in me on this, so you start.
yeah. So I'll tell the like brief together and then a brief about mine as well, because we kind of have like three stories going on with
Amazing.
two.
Yeah.
Um, so me and her both um went to the same college for neuroscience because we're really curious about how our mind works. We're trying to understand ourselves from this like philosophical standpoint. And so we meet there as like two weirdos who just like need somebody to see them and understand them. And we're kind of like fast friends, but also like distant, brief friends.
Mm,
But we have like this very instant chemistry and connection. We just kind of have our own like friend groups outside of that. So we're like going along, and she has her college boyfriend, and like they have a very close connection. They like soul connected. His name's Armand, and I am also friends with Armand. So after college, I live close to Armand, and Maddie lives in Florida. We get to be friends together, and me and her shared suicidal ideation. And then Armand, our mutual friend, passes
mm,
from suicide. And so she comes back, and we kind of navigate that together a little
mhm.
bit. And then we split up and kind of go on our separate healing journeys and find the same like spirituality or spiritual outlet
Mm,
through our own lens.
yeah.
So in the meantime, I'm in the throes of addiction. I have a partner, and we have a baby, and I lose my child. I go to jail. I have like all of this horrible stuff happen.
Yeah.
And then I kind of have like my tower moment where everything
Mhm.
collapses to
Yeah.
rebuild for something new. And
Hmm.
I had Mads be a bridesmaid in my wedding. So she's like kind of just tangentially there
Yeah.
in her own grief and like helping me along the way, but we're not super close. She comes to my wedding and we're kind of like through the throes of our own grief journey. And then we decide like we need to create community. We need to make better
Mhm.
friendships. Like we've been craving these more in depth and intentional female friendships.
Mhm.
And we want to create a space for that. So then we start a podcast and kind of use all of that pain that I gave like such a brief synopsis
Mhm.
of to create something like you create.
Yeah. Yeah. That's wow, quite a story, I will say. Uh, um, and so grateful that you're here today and to join us. But I wanted to point out, you said you had your tower moment where everything has to crumble down so you can rebuild. And I think so many of us can relate to that. You know, we may not have as big of a story, but we all have that. A lot of us have that moment where everything crumbles and then you start to see, okay, this is actually fallen away because I'm supposed to build something even bigger and better and more beautiful from myself and from these stories. So I think that's really beautiful. Thank you for sharing that moment. You know, I think so many people are going to relate just to that alone, just that feeling of whether they're in that tower moment now or you know, coming through it or trying to dig themselves out of it to see the other side of it, right? See you here in your own space and doing something that you love. That's very powerful. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, and I don't know if you want to get into it, but like now she's a drug and alcohol counselor and has really like taken a lot of her personal like grief and struggles and is like helping
Mm.
so many people through that journey now with like such a special lens.
And it only happened because I lost my son and like the timing of that.
Hmm.
Um, And I actually remember before any of that happened, when I was like deep in my addiction, still like in denial. I remember calling Mads and she was like just starting this spiritual journey. And I just had like, I went to this festival and I had this like a horrible, horrible moment and experience
Mm.
and was being called to spirituality, but like really being tested in it. And
Yep.
I called, and she was in the midst of like kind of her, I don't know where you were in your journey, but she was starting to like build that and
Mm.
was essentially like, I know what you mean, and I'm kind of through that now, but like just keep going. And so like Matt
Mhm.
has been a huge inspiration for me spiritually, and she's a spiritual worker, mindset worker, yoga teacher. So she also has like built like very different but powerful things from
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, I love also just how you like reflected back the tower experience, like both of you. It's really good. It's something I think about a lot.
Mm.
And like Kat brought up, I'm like a spiritual life coach and mindset coach now. I work with a lot of women on, just like actually liking their lives and feeling safe to show up like themselves.
Mm.
And I think a lot about these dark moments or these really, I guess, I hate to use the word bad, but like what a lot of times like we're thinking is
Mhm.
bad,
Yeah.
maybe not ideal or unhealthy or unwanted. And we spend so much time trying to resist those labels and those moments and pretend like they're not there. And a lot of times it just keeps us in our suffering.
Yeah.
So I think something that's so important about this kind of conversation is being like that you're not like a bad or unworthy person because you have bad, unhealthy moments.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
think that these conversations are so beautiful because sometimes you have to let everything fall apart and you have to face those dark things and
Hmm.
then you can like build from like your authentic place.
Yeah, I agree. And in my coaching, that's something we talk about a lot too, is like if you're in that dark moment, it's almost like you're in a dark vessel, right? You're encapsulated, you're kind of in your own space, you're bombarded, but you're like tight in this space. And then as you start to see that this is the darkness that's holding you, you can break it, right? And it's not a bad thing to break it and to break open that vessel, because that's when you find your light. That's when you find your being, yourself. That's when you can start to grow and expand outside of that tiny little dark vessel. And I agree. I don't think that there's, bad and good. I think that it's just all experience. It's all learning, right? We don't ever fail. We just get to try different things. And some things suck ass, but it's the way it is. So we have to learn and move forward from them. So I love that. I love that you guys are taking that and taking that reflection and spinning it to help other people. How beautiful that you're turning around and helping others in the space that you were, right? You took that darkness, and instead of just throwing it away and being like, well, whatever, it's now your light that you're shining onto so many other people that need that from you. So that's beautiful.
Yeah, and I think when you mention the vessel, I think what's scary about that is like we don't often acknowledge that those vessels feel like safety. So when you are called to make that break,
Yes.
it there's everything in my body at least
Hmm.
was like, no, stay. This is
Yeah.
safe. We
Yeah.
keep you protected. This is what like it felt so wrong to break, and it felt
This is who you are. This is what people want from you.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's acknowledging all of those wounds
Mhm.
and that um yeah, that's like my safety. That's my like cubby hole.
Mhm.
And if I go outside of it, I don't have one and I have to find a new one. And
Mhm.
that feels overwhelming and it's tough to embark on. And I don't want to ever like shame somebody who needs to stay in their vessel a little longer, if
Mhm.
that makes sense. Like I
Yeah.
remember what it was like being there, and it felt like there's a safety to it.
Yes.
So I don't want it to be like, because I think sometimes for me that moment I was talking about, that spiritual place,
Yeah.
is looked down upon
Mhm.
by not Mads but other people who like had gotten to the other side of their spiritual bridge or
Mhm.
something, and we're kind of like, wow, it's so sad that like you're still stuck in these mindsets, like, one day you'll do better, but like weren't willing to like reach out and like help me or
Yeah.
have compassion for like it's okay to still be triggered and wounded. Like
Mhm.
that's we're at a different place in the journey and that's still beautiful. So
Yeah.
like yeah, it's okay to be in a dark place.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that you should be in the light always. Like that's your
No.
safety. And there's
Yeah.
new dark places in the light. Like there's always
There's always
vessels.
a shadow hiding somewhere around the corner, so be careful. Yeah, I think that's so important too, because I think, our bodies do, if we talk a lot about nervous system regulation, and our bodies do find comfort in that which we know. And if we know the chaos of addiction or those dark places, our body feels safe there, whether or not it's actually safe. It's the nervous system recognizes it as, well, this is something that I know. And if you're going to make me go over there and do that thing, I don't know that yet. So I'm not safe there. So it's a process, and it's a retraining of your nervous system and a re-recognizing and a relearning. So I think that's a really good point. And I'm sorry you had such a bad experience in the spiritual community.
It
I
was the
don't,
one. It wasn't
oh,
like
okay.
in general. It was that
That one
moment.
isn't, okay.
I haven't since then, right? But
Okay.
it was
I do think it's a problem, but I
Yeah.
also think it's almost part of the spiritual evolution. Like, I'd love to hear your feedback on that.
Mhm.
But as someone that has become more and more integrated in like the
Mhm.
spiritual facilitator community, I do see that coming up where it's like almost coming from a place of like, I know better and like I'm gonna shame you so that you'll change. And I maybe that's just a sales tactic and like that's a whole other conversation.
Yes.
But I also think it is almost this journey of like you can reconnect to spirituality in a world that has kind of been dismissing it, although it's,
Mhm.
arguably turning around. So a lot of people are like awakening and becoming more spiritual again.
Yeah.
But then it's like there's levels to that. And like when you're still very in your ego and you're like, I'm better than everyone, it's easy
Mhm.
to like look down and be like, oh, that's so sad that like you haven't found inner peace and love and light.
Yeah.
But then like the stage above that is like letting go and being like, actually every experience is a spiritual experience
Yeah.
and we're all doing like what we need to do. That doesn't mean you can't change, right? Like that's like the whole
Mhm.
thesis of our podcast is like taking all of this in and like learning how to work with your body and your spirituality and your nervous system to create what you want intentionally,
Yes.
but like from out without shame.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we're all human, right? So even within the spiritual realm and the spiritual community, there are those people that are still in their human mind frame of they need money. So how do I, that's a really strong sales tactic is to shame somebody into buying what you're selling or to take what you are giving. So I agree, there is a lot of that. I think that it is starting to evolve out of it a little bit. Having been in this, community and the and surroundings for a good, 10, 15 years now, I'm seeing less of it, but it is still there. It definitely is there. Yeah. But that's it's all part of our journey, right? They're on their own journey, we're on our journey, and sometimes you're gonna find, I think we'll always have our triggers. We'll always have something, right? Because as you unearth a layer, another layer comes up. So I
Yep.
I don't think
I
we
mean,
ever get over it.
yeah, we're even experiencing that like within our friendship. Cause like Kat was sharing, like we've been friends for what, like 10 years now?
Yeah.
And we've seen each other through many different phases, and the proximity of our relationship has always been different. And but it's cool, like we have kind of almost come to similar places. But even in like this, we told you before we started recording, like we've been spending the last like week and a half together,
Yeah.
and even having this much time like with each other
Hmm.
is bringing out all these different moments of where like, oh, like, we thought we were really in sync here and we're actually not. And
Hmm.
I feel really like, oh, you don't actually understand me, or like you don't actually like me. And then giving each other the space to like step back and be like, just because I don't like fully assume what you assume, or no, that doesn't mean I don't love you, and like
Yes.
helping us work through that. And it's kind of like that on a bigger scale for
Mm,
like all of humanity, is like holding
yes.
space for people to not be what you think that they are and like love them anyway.
Yeah. I think something we've experienced from like my point of view is like to me, I almost thought like everybody addressed triggers in a similar order. And
Mm,
our relationship showed that there are triggers that I have that she helps me through because she's addressed them, and like it's like, oh, I see that vessel you're in, I know, and I know where you're going, and I'm here to tell you like you're safe on the other side, like it's okay.
mhm.
um and then there is triggers that she has that I feel like maybe I dealt with something similarly in the past, and I'm like,
Mhm.
for some reason I didn't think that you had that, but
Yeah.
now I'm seeing how I'm hitting that for you.
Yeah.
um Sorry.
It's okay.
Come here. So, like, and the funny thing is just because we're triggered in relationship doesn't mean that the relationship doesn't work.
Yes.
It's actually that this is an opportunity for us to grow and show compassion for each other and create
Yes.
boundaries and better understanding.
Hmm.
And it's really just strengthened everything. And like after we gave it a name and put it out there and
Yes.
had the conversation, it's like it's what makes us stronger. So I think sometimes there's a fear that like if somebody triggers you, like that's not for you. But
Yeah.
it's actually it is for you. It's
Yeah.
to
Or
teach
could
you.
be for you.
It
Yeah.
could be, yeah.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. I think that as we evolve through our life and we grow and we expand, there are those moments when we have to unearth some things, right? So having that friendship that you guys have, what a beautiful community together that you can have these moments. And it's not so much, like, oh, screw you, you're triggering me, but it's that okay, this is coming up and how do I feel about it? Let's talk about it. Let's work it through. And I think that's really beautiful. And then, having a community of people around you, whether it's, in a community membership or something, but having those people around you where you can allow yourself to be triggered and to allow yourself to have these moments to come up because you will learn so much in those moments about yourself, about the other person. And I think that if we were all on the same page about everything, that would be so fucking boring. Like, why would you want that?
We
Right?
couldn't grow,
Yeah,
like
exactly.
on the page if I know that there's another page to go to.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
like
I don't know.
yeah, and I think it's so easy. And I think especially like, we're in our 20s still for a little bit longer. But I think
So
something that we
young.
see a lot in our age group and
Yes.
younger is almost like this. And I, not to pivot too far, but I actually saw someone talk about this. It was like in college admissions and was talking about how the year I went to college, so 2014 specifically, is when they started noticing from like a college admin level, like there's something really different about this
Mm,
demographic of kids. Like they cannot tolerate any uncomfortability. And
mm,
it's not just like uncomfortable, it's like they're like really, really deeply struggling and like cannot handle conflict at all because they feel like they are in danger.
mhm.
And I think there's something really like sad about that, and that we're losing something that we can't handle those things, and that it's not our fault. Like I think that it was like an overcorrection from the generation
Mm,
before,
mhm.
and I can see that, but it's almost like we have to be so much more intentional within our friendships to be like, just because you say something I don't like or that makes me upset, it doesn't mean that like friendship over or
Mhm.
like career over. It's like
Yeah.
learning how to confront those feelings and navigate, like, is this truly unsafe and an unhealthy situation, or do I just not know how to be confronted with uncomfortable feelings?
Yeah, I think that is a really valid point. I'm of the generation where it was like we were purposely offensive to each other, you know?
Yeah.
So like we mean to each other on purpose, and like that was part of my generation. And so there was a big paradigm shift that happened to the other extreme. And so I see that, um, if your nervous system already feels so unsafe or you're so unsure, that it's so easy to go overboard with that little thing that triggered you, and now you don't know what to do. And I see that my kids are actually about the same age as you guys, so I see in their dynamics that awareness that needs to happen. And I think it's a beautiful thing that you ladies are opening that conversation to bridge that space where we had so much of your lives were like upside down for a very long time. And there was a lot of unsafe space in your very formative years. So for you guys to open those conversations and to talk about it, and to recognize that, hey, this is, this we can trigger each other. It's okay. If I'm offended, it's okay. It just means that I can learn something at the same time, right? And my generation was more like, let's see if we can offend you, right? So
How much can you tolerate?
exactly. Yeah. And so it's definitely there is a bridge there that needs to be gapped. And I love having these conversations. A lot of the work I do with my clients actually is let's talk to our younger selves. Let's talk to the 20-year-olds that we used to be. And you'll find that we were kind of in the same boat. We were overwhelmed. We were overstimulated. It was our generation was a big push. My mom was like the first one to go to work, and so there was this huge push in our generation to like do all the things, go to work, be the mom, climb the corporate ladder, take care of the household, make sure your man is happy. Like it was all the things. So there was
Everything at once.
exactly, like, can you be 17 million people at the same time, please? Um, and I see that shifting in your generation, which I am here for this because I see you guys stepping into your own light, your own personalities, stepping into being stronger, more centered women. And I think that that's such a beautiful shift that's happening in the space right now. So I love that you guys are bringing conversation to this. Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on that? I don't know. No, this is good though. I did not expect us to go in this direction, but I really like it and I think it's really important. It's something I think about a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it really reminds me of some of the things that sobriety has taught me.
Mm.
Um, I'm a 12-step program person.
Yeah.
I believe in like the 12 steps. And a lot of that system is based around not what is wrong in the world around me or the person who offended me, but what about me did that like bring up, and addressing like my side of the street, but then also kind of like being able to communicate that to others. So
Mhm.
like when I'm triggered in a relationship, it's not wrong of me to be offended, but to teach somebody why I'm offended, to learn,
Mhm.
to inquire myself, like, why am I not just offended, but like, do I feel like that person is worth writing off? Why do I feel like that value threatens my well-being so much that I would like avoid relationship, which I
Mhm.
think I'm of the believer that like connection is kind of like my higher the purpose of all of this
Mm.
is like to be in connection.
Yeah.
Um, and so I would do a lot to kind of understand like how to connect to anyone, right? And I really don't like the divisiveness of, generation amongst other generations. Like we see recently a lot of fight between the generations and between ideologies. Like when I was a kid, it was much more acceptable to have differing political beliefs, and
Mhm.
now that's not, it's so polarizing.
Yes.
And kind of why that is, who's doing that, right?
Mhm.
Is it the everyday people that we're actually arguing online with, or is
Mhm.
it a tool?
Yep.
Just all of these things, and like what does it trigger in me,
Yeah.
and like what is the compassionate response? How do I embody my beliefs and not act from a place of hate? Like I was definitely in my younger years somebody who fought intolerance with intolerance. So
Mm.
like that, offensiveness, like if you offend me, then I have every right to offend you.
Right.
And kind of stepping out of that, I think,
Mhm.
and shaming people for being in their vessels. Remember, those beliefs, they keep them safe to an extent. We don't
Yes.
know why. And it's
Yeah.
not our responsibility to like help them through it. If
Mhm.
it's toxic to you, there's good boundaries for you to have. You don't have to be around it,
Mhm.
but understanding that there's something about that that is just another wound, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And to have compassion.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, that 100%. That is so, you said that so beautifully. And I think that's all part of that being as we evolve, right? As we learn more about ourselves and we become more connected to our own being, our own vessel, our own spirit, we can see others in that light of compassion. We can see with empathy instead of, that, like you said, that from I'm offended, so I can offend you, right? That eye for an eye, if you will, right? So I think that that's a really great reminder that as we evolve and become, okay with ourselves, become more connected with ourselves, we have less desire, I feel, to fight against other people that way. That's how I've perceived it in my journey, and I thank you for sharing that about yours for sure. Yeah. Okay, ladies. So we've kind of went completely off topic. I was like not expecting. I'm looking at my notes here going, that is not at all what we were going to talk about. But I think this has been a very valuable conversation. And I'm really grateful that you guys have come on and had this conversation, have been open to have this conversation, because I do think that it is time, for us to come together as women, whether we're 40s, 50s, 20s, 30s, it doesn't matter. We all need to come together. We're all evolving. We're all on this messed up ride together. So let's do this together. And so I really appreciate that you guys came, that you shared your stories, and shared your insight, as 20-year-olds to my audience, especially of, midlifers. So I appreciate that. Um, Before we close out, is there anything you want to share about, what you guys are doing, what you're offering? Tell us about all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I did not even realize your age. You look so good, and I'm so well you have us on here.
Thank you.
I know. I thought you were like, I mean, I know that your demographic was older, but still, yeah. I mean, I don't know if you're gonna keep this in, but yeah, I definitely thought you're like mid-30s.
Oh, well, thank you. I am not. So thank you.
Yeah, no, you could never tell. But love keeps you young, you know.
Yes.
But we are doing a Rewired Woman podcast, and if you want to talk, like listen more to us talk about relationships with yourself, we are kind of going through our journey in different topics. This coming week, we're going to be releasing cycle syncing.
Mm.
Don't know when this is coming out,
It'll
but
be later, but they can always go back and grab your stuff. And yeah, if you guys have it access available, we'll put everything in the show notes so they can grab it. We're a big proponent of cycle syncing over here, so that's really
Yeah,
good.
so we did a deep dive in like the neuroscience behind
Mm.
it. And then we're going to be going into like the neuroscience of depression across the female lifespan. So it looks a lot into like how our hormonal changes affect depression specifically in women. And then we've talked about like intuition, suicide, and we have lots of things planned.
yeah, we are a
Okay.
neuroscience heavy science experience based podcast. So if you like to do your own research, you're looking for research that has to deal with women's issues or from a woman's lens, and some of these more spiritual woo-woo topics like intuition,
Mhm.
you can come over and listen to what the science has to say plus our experience.
And we're Rewired Woman Pod on Instagram and Rewired Woman Podcast on YouTube.
Amazing. I will make sure that's all in the show notes. I love that you guys are science, but woo, because same, I grew up reading medical journals because I thought that was cool. So
We're a good company.
that's the kind of nerd I am, so I love it that you guys are here with me. Thank you so much, ladies, for sharing your hearts, for sharing your stories. I really do think that this conversation is going to reach out and touch so many of the listeners, and I think that, those that are in their own chaos, that are in their own darkness, whether they're 20, 30, 40, like I said, it doesn't matter. Just hearing your story and hearing how you're coming out of things and having this open conversation, I think is really going to help them. Again, guys listening, if you want to connect with these lovely ladies, they are on Instagram. Everything is going to be in the show notes. I definitely encourage you guys to go and follow along, continue to share in with their real, their raw conversations. And, if this resonated with you today, please make sure to share it with a friend, make sure to pass it along, and make sure that we can bring brighter futures to others. So until next time, please remember that your chaos doesn't get the final say. You get to find your clarity, you can step into your confidence, and you are never, ever alone on your path. So thank you so much for joining us. Until next time.